Hi, I'm Kim, and I'm going to walk you through these leather kits that are for our leather plant pots. And so, just walking you through all the steps that you might need to know of how to get started with your new kit. So, your kit has a piece of leather. As you can see, this one is embossed with a geometric pattern, and this one has almost like a wood grain pattern to it. And then the kit comes with a bottom. This one I've already cleaned up, whereas the kit itself will just come with it lightly scored on the bottom here, and you're going to have to cut it to size. You'll also see that on the sides it's been lightly scored as to where you need to make all of those nice straight cuts. And to give you a little background, these got pressed in a big pattern just like this. And here's the other one to give you a sense. So the leather got soaked in water for probably about 10 to 30 seconds, basically till it stopped having a ton of bubbles come up through it. And then it got pressed in that mold that you saw. So essentially this leather, a board on top, and my first time doing it, there was even a board on bottom, and this is a great way of doing it at home without a lot of mechanisms, but I used a ton of clamps and evenly distributed all the pressure. A way that I'm now doing it is that I'll put a top piece on here, and then it gets slid into a vacuum press, which looks like a giant sandwich bag that you can suck all the air out of it. So yeah, a lot quicker, a lot more uniform. And then what we've got going on here at our workstation, I've just got a cutting mat. If you don't have a cutting mat, you can just use a cutting board. You might want to use something thicker than this, but this is a beat up one that I have that you can just see that I've got a lot of marks from doing beginning leather work. You could also have just a piece of sheet good as that's the way to get going. I've also used cardboard in the past. It's not as durable, and you can feel all the corrugations as you're cutting, so not the best, but if you need a cheap, quick option that's easily accessible, that's the way to go. So at this point, let's get going. So I like to have a straight edge. It can be a ruler, you name it. Actually, before we get going here, I wanted to quickly bring up some of the cutters that you might have on hand. A rotary cutter is great. You really want a sharp blade, so you might find that you need to change out your blade. It's not going to be very helpful for you if there isn't a nice crisp blade in there. Another cheap option that you could easily have on hand is an X-Acto knife. Again, make sure that it's got a sharp blade in there. And then there's also this guy, more sold as a specialty leather working tool, but it just has a little bit of a hook to it. It makes making circles and other unique shapes really easy. Again, sharp blade is very needed. This is actually the sharpest blade out of the three of them that I've got currently. This is sold so that it's also a disposable blade, just like these other two options are. I find having a straight edge that's low profile is really nice, and I actually find that masonite with this little bit of grippiness is helpful so that I don't scoot my straight edge around as I go. You could also have a typical long ruler, steel ruler that has a little bit of cork on the back, would do that perfectly as well. So I'm going to find that line that was scored for me. And I'm going to try cutting this in multiple passes. The first one is, again, just to really score it. Realizing I need to lock my workstation in place. Obviously, there's a lot of ways that you could cut this, so just continuing the long strips, I find that I can hold my board down the best by just focusing on little sections. Fantastic. Just to show a range of options, we'll get the rotary tool out next. I have the edges that go past my cutting mat, so they're having a hard time getting scored with the rotary tool. Shortcut, way easier. Nice. That's going to get put off to the side for a moment. Next is cutting out this. So there's lots of options here too. I could not find my heavy duty sharp scissors, but that is my favorite way so far of cutting this. My next favorite way is to lightly score, work in little maybe like quarter sections or so, and keep going around and slowly getting this. So I'll do, well, it's in this orientation, enough passes right here so that I fully cut this, and then on to the next section. So here we go. My first one, like I've been saying, starts out nice and light. Good lighting is helpful because you end up casting a shadow on yourself. You can see the beginning. So as I come into the new area again, making sure I'm not casting too much of a shadow on my blade, from my blade to the line that I need to follow, and I'm intentionally doing a lighter as well as slower cut while I'm doing this initial scoring. My blade could still want to jump around, so I'm going to take it easy on the second pass. But I can tell that it does have a little line to follow. A little bit more downward pressure. Almost. There we go. The next steps coming up is going to be giving ourselves layout marks. And the layout marks are determined basically by the thickness of your leather. You want to go in that much for your sewing stitch. So we're going to lay that out while we have the full thickness of the leather right here. The step following that, providing ourselves with a layout line, will be chamfering, giving it as close to a 45-degree angle as we can freehand on this whole edge. And then we're going to pick an edge that's going to become the bottom of the plant pot. And so we'll pick one of these, and then we'll provide ourselves with that layout line while this is all solid. And then we're going to come back and chamfer the very bottom as well, so that it can make a nice snug joint of the two parts coming together once we glue them in place and then sew them in place.
I'm making these flat pack kits available to all, so click the link below and find out how you can buy one for yourself or give it as a gift. Definitely make sure to follow along, as I've created a whole video series on step-by-step instructions on how to make these leather planter pots.